Hey there, Blib here, and today for you guys I have the video on Disciplinary Command and how to play with it and everything you really need to know about this legendary. This will be focused around fire mages. If you're watching this with Frost or Arcane, it's basically similar apart from you'll be using a fire blast in your rotation somewhere. Normally where you'll be using the Frostbolt or the Frost Nova, so just keep that in mind, it's not too hard to figure out. I'll also be giving you guys a really cool WeakAura that someone made, and I'll give you a link to the WeakAura they made on vago.io, which is really handy and a really nice way to track this legendary. Without further ado, let's just get straight into the video. The Disciplinary Command, you're going to be crafting this on your ring to start with. I'm on the PTR right now because I didn't have enough Soul Ash on my retail character for various reasons, for testing, and I'm trying lots of stuff out at the moment, which you'll find out more about later. Either way, I've crafted this on my wrist just for this video, but you'll be crafting it on your ring. This is simply because your ring is going to give you more stats per item level than the wrist will. The wrist are like one of the worst items in the game in terms of like per item level upgrade of DPS increase. So, you know, going from a 220 wrist to a 230 wrist, for example, will give you less DPS than going from a 220 chest to a 230 chest. And that's the same sort of thing that's applying with the rings here. You're getting a lot more, even though the rings don't have intellect on them, they're giving you quite a lot of secondary stat when you're upgrading the rings. So that's why you'll be crafting it on a ring. The stats you're going to be putting on it depends on what type of stats you have already and what type of content you're doing. Personally, I put crit haste on my legendary simply because I think having a nice amount of crit for raid is really nice because it means you're going to get those consistent 1-minute combustions. And then haste is obviously the best stat for fire mage, so just having haste in case I ever drop below a certain threshold, you know, just having a nice amount of haste on that ring is going to really just keep you above that threshold of haste you want. If you're doing Mythic Plus or PvP, then you can opt in for Versatility as your secondary stat, or Mastery. Personally, I'll go Versatility because it's more, you know, universal between the specs, whereas Mastery, you know, isn't as useful for Frost as it is for Arcane and Fire. So yeah, crit haste on ring or haste verse, or haste mastery, honestly it's up to you. Okay, so enough about all that, now let's get straight into the legendary itself. So first I'm going to show you how this WeakAura works. So the WeakAura that I have is very cool because whenever you're in combat, I'm in combat right now with this target, the WeakAura will be able to appear whenever you've casted a spell. So I've casted a fire spell. You can see this little orange bar, and I'll show you the arcane spell because I can actually spam one of those. This bar is like the time I have left until that 8-second or 10-second grace period expires on the arcane spell, and I can't proc Disciplinary Command of it anymore. So as you can see, I need to cast a Frostfire and arcane spell within 10 seconds of each other. So having that timer here on the side is a good indication in case I'm getting ready to proc Disciplinary Command and I'm not sure if I'm going to have the Frost spell that I recently cast counting or not. So that's what I really like about this WeakAura. It's also going to track a few other things, but first, yeah, so I'll just show you proccing now quickly. I'm going to cast the Fire, Frost, and Arcane spell. As you can see, I got my Disciplinary Command buff now, 20% crit for 20 seconds. Pretty strong. Just going to fast forward the video until it expires. As you can see, it's expired, and now you see this another like 7-second window. Now the great thing about this here is I can still get ready to proc Disciplinary Command like this, and now as soon as it goes, I procced it instantly, because it still counts as long as the spell is ready to be procced. The 10-second cast I cast before will still proc it. That's something to keep in mind, that you can prepare to proc your Disciplinary Command like before it's even come off cooldown. So make sure you keep that in mind. It's a good way to just proc it instantly and keep it on the low cooldown. Okay, so now we've got all that early intro stuff out the way, and Disciplinary Command, what you're crafting it in, and you know, the WeakAura, which I think is insanely helpful and everyone that's playing Fire Mage and with Disciplinary Command should have, because it is really essential for tracking and making effective use out of this legendary. Right, so now how do you play with this legendary? Well, the important thing to note is that whenever you cast Combustion, you're casting an arcane spell and a fire spell. An arcane spell, because Rune of Power is an arcane spell, and when I press Combustion, it counts as both. That's a very important thing to note because it means you don't have to cast an arcane spell. Now if you do need to proc an arcane spell and you haven't got Combustion up, well, and your Rune of Power isn't up, for example, you don't really want to waste your time casting an Arcane Intellect or, you know, another arcane spell, because it's not really going to give you that same sort of, it's going to waste the global, which is going to make you lose a bit of DPS. You can use your counter spell, because your counter spell is just an instant cast that is not on the global cooldown, so it doesn't really affect you, and it gets you that, you know, arcane spell that you need to cast. So that is what you'll be doing when you're not using Rune of Power to proc it. If you cannot use your interrupt because you need it for something else, then you can just use an arcane explosion. You know, it doesn't need to hit anything. It just is a cast you can use to quickly get that arcane spell cast if you have to. Alright, so now how do we use this efficiently in the raid environment? So what you'll do is about 6 or 7 seconds before pull, probably about 6 seconds for safety, you'll cast a Frost Nova, and then you're going to cast your Hardcast Pyroblast into Combustion, because your Frost Nova is going to give you your Frost spell, your Combustion is going to give you your Arcane and Fire spell, and that's going to make you get your Disciplinary Command proc at the start of your Combustion, which is what you want. Okay, so I'll show you that in action now with the pull timer. So this is how you'll be doing every Combustion on pull. With a pull timer, I'm going to use my Frost Nova. I'll cast my Pyroblast. This isn't on time, I know this isn't perfect, and then just combust. And now I have my Disciplinary Command for my Combustion, and I don't have to worry about it. And I'm just going to keep playing this out because I want to show you then how I will proc it later on, and you'll do the same thing. I'll give you the reasoning for it as well. Okay, so my spells are coming up. I'm going to use an arcane, counter spell, and then I'm going to cast a Frost Bolt. The Frost Bolt is going to finish, and now I have my Disciplinary Command proc again. And that's how you'll do every single Disciplinary Command proc outside of Combustion. You'll interrupt, and then cast a Frost Bolt. And you may be wondering, why am I casting a Frost Bolt instead of a Frost Nova? Well, the DPS difference isn't going to be that big, I'll tell you that now. But the reason I cast the Frost Bolt is because Disciplinary Command doesn't start until you finish casting a spell. When you cast Frost Nova, you're locking yourself out of the GCD, so you are essentially not able to cast anything for a second. Frost Nova does no damage, and you also have to, you know, consider that Disciplinary Command procs as soon as you proc the Frost Nova, as soon as you press the Frost Nova. As a result, the Disciplinary Command is going to start ticking. You're going to lose some crucial time on that as a Fire Mage. When you have so many crits, you want to get as much uptime on that as you can. So by casting a Frost Bolt, you incur the GCD, but the GCD is over by the time that you're the GCD is over by the time that you've finished the Frost Bolt cast, so I can just go straight into a Fireball when the DC procs, which means you don't have any downtime. And then you'll be doing that for the rest of your Combustion. You'll always be proccing it with Frost Bolt. So when my Combustion's ready and I'm ready to go into my next Combustion, I'm just going to proc my Frost Bolt into Fireball, Combustion, or whatever you're doing, you know, with your Combustion. If you have a hot streak ready, then just go straight into Combustion. You don't have to wait that long. And that's how you play Disciplinary Commands. Before pull, you'll always be using a Frost Nova to proc it, and then when you're during the fight, you'll be using a Frost Bolt. As I said, you're really not missing out on that much DPS if you just want to use a Frost Nova. That's completely fine. But if you can get used to using a Frost Bolt, it's just going to be that slight bit better for your DPS. And yeah, that's all for this video. I hope you all found it helpful. Now, I'll just put this at the end of the video for those of you that are interested. Obviously, I haven't uploaded much in the last couple of weeks, simply because I had a really big job interview come up. I've been completely focused on that, because I feel like that would really help me out in my current life situation. So that's where I put all my time, and that's why I haven't been really keeping up with my YouTube that much. Oh, I have been pretty active on my Discord. It's pretty easy for me to just respond to stuff on my Discord and stuff, so feel free to join there if you have any questions and want to just join in with the community. So I have a lot of cool people in there. Yeah, boy, I hope you really enjoyed this video and found it helpful, and I would really like to thank my YouTube members and Patreon supporters. We've got a few more members in here. Thank you so much, guys, for helping me out. As I said, in my previous video, obviously my life situation isn't perfect, so that extra bit of money just really helps me continue living. So thank you so much for the help, and I hope you have a wonderful week, everybody, and I'll see you in the next video.